This is the Ronin Philosopher, where I take a look at martial arts and try to examine them from a cultural point of view for pop culture, techniques, and where they come from. When I was growing up, back in the 1980s and the early 90s, martial arts was kind of this mystical thing that geeks would call upon to get bullies to leave them alone. I know karate, or kung fu, or something like that. The cat raising its profile and hissing. Anything so that you didn't sound as defenseless as you looked. Every once in a while, though, you will be pressed to identify just what kind of style you claim to have. More than once, I've heard the answer, "It's my own style." Of course, it was regarded as a cop-out answer to hide your own weakness. But at the same time, the comment wasn't limited to just outcasts and geeks trying to protect themselves. Martial arts flicks were still a thing back then, transplanted from the 1970s thanks to Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. Many schools tried to capitalize on this boom, and many claim to have created their own styles as well, blending one, two, or three type of other ones, and then saying that they have mastered all three to create their own. And of course, how cool did that sound? I guess you can say that they were among the first to lay claim to the title of mixed martial arts, before it was even called that. Or were they? Today, MMA, as it's now called, is quite popular and promotes the same strength as those grade school kids trying to defend themselves. Only it's quite true. Its fighters are known to be proficient in two or more other styles, and it claims to have inherited this from Bruce Lee himself, who developed his own style of Jeet Kune Do. But as part of the underground tension between MMA and TMA, or traditional martial arts, many have called bullshit on this claim, and that it was just more than Western bravado trying to make MMA look special. So the question remains, is MMA, or for that matter even Jeet Kune Do, a unique innovator of blending many styles that they claim to be, or are they just promoting bullshit, trying to hide their own weakness? As it turns out, yes and no. And while it may have been a defense mechanism, there is something to be said for those school kids using the back door of their own style. As far as known, the first mixed combat form was called pankration, developed in ancient Greece around the 7th century BCE, and it was used first during the Olympic Games. A combination of wrestling and empty-handed strikes, as well as submission, if the legends are to be believed, even killing your opponent was legally allowed. And it was also said to have been techniques to have been used by many of the ancient Greek heroes, such as Hercules. There was also a variation used in warfare as well. One possible example of this is during the Battle of Thermopylae, where the Spartans resorted to hand-to-hand combat and even biting at the Persians as they faced their inevitable deaths. It is also said that the Romans applied it to their own military as well, and that it wasn't until the Byzantine Empire that pankration was outlawed because of its association with other non-Christian religions at the time. Now, a unique aspect to pankration is that this is truly a Western style in origin, and not something that was developed or brought over from other places across the world. Nor is it something that we would associate with older martial arts, like karate and kung fu, for example. Pankration bears many similarities to modern MMA styles today. However, the aspect of death matches would be outlawed immediately. Some have even argued that pankration was deadlier than UFC during its early years in the 1990s because of these rules, where they allowed killing. Another style that claims legitimacy from heritage and age would be Silat out of Indonesia. Like pankration, it also combined different techniques together, but unlike it borrowed techniques that came from other cultures entirely. If you watch a Silat fighter, you will see elements of many other styles, including Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu, and Kali, just to name a few. While there is no official source saying definitively where it came from, it is believed by many to have been cobbled together over the centuries by oceanic nomads, pirates, and merchants, given that the islands lay along an important trade route. Another difference from pankration is that Silat does not have one single form. There are, in fact, many, with its different focuses and techniques. One of the most common elements, though, is its heavy incorporation of weapons. It's only been recently that Silat has been becoming more recognized in the outside world thanks to movies like The Raid. I have even heard some say that the style's fast and lethal forms are leading to a resurgence of martial arts movies, as it's not like the flashy Van Damme spinning kicks and moving walls like Seagal's form of Aikido back in the day, or even the flashy moves of Wushu used by Jackie Chan and Jet Li during the Double O's. Going back to Europe though, another mixed form came from England in 1898 called Bari-Jitsu. Bari-Jitsu used European and Japanese forms to develop something of a 3 rings of defense. The first ring, if you will, involved using a walking cane as a form of self-defense, was well known for its inclusion in the form. The second ring was the use of hands and feet for both attack and self-defense, while keeping the attacker away at a distance to help prevent injury. And then the final ring was the grappling technique of Jiu-Jitsu and Judo, if the other 2 happened to be broken. In all 3, however, emphasis was given to speed and landing critical blows rather than being drawn into a knockdown, drag-out fight, just like its predecessors. And then, of course, there's the aforementioned JKD, developed by Bruce Lee during the 1960s and 70s. Like the other styles that I mentioned already, it too drew heavily from other styles. And similar to Bari-Jitsu and Silat, many of them came from opposing cultures: Western boxing, French savate, Chinese Wing Chun, and wrestling grappling, and so on. However, there was something unique to JKD that separates it both from its predecessors and modern MMA. Bruce Lee was a hardcore philosopher, as well as a former street fighter. He had studied many different forms in order to understand them and to better express the human body as he believed, besides improving fighting. JKD, consequently, is more of a philosophy than a fighting style, at least according to half the people who practice it. There was a philosophy behind almost every move that was done. While there are most certainly combative techniques ranging from eye gouging and biting to holds and traps, it was all motivated by the philosophy of adaptation and interception. JKD's core element is the saying, "The best defense is a good offense." So many techniques specific to JKD often involve both blocking and attacking instead of one or the other. It was also developed to be inclusive of any style and to not isolate them from others, which is why many people consider it to have no style. I've studied some JKD and found its philosophy of adaptation extremely useful in other areas, from council meetings to relationships. And although I will not slam any martial art as a suck-ass or obsolete style, I have yet to see one that seamlessly translates fighting to real life outside of the fighting ring. But that's my own experience, not someone else's. Modern MMA as we know it now has inherited the borrowing of native and foreign styles such as boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai. It is definitely a mixed style, though it seems at times to lack any real technique. My old Aikido master once referred to it as human cockfighting. Its primary focus is battle within the ring. It can and has definitely been used in street fighting scenarios, but its emphasis is on the rules of the ring and 1v1 combat. MMA often tends to be unique in its heavy emphasis on physical conditioning, something many other styles don't lean as much on. And I will be the first to admit that if I was fighting an MMA fighter in the ring by their rules, he or she would probably outlast me, and I probably would have lost. So now to go back to the original question, are MMA and JKD the original godfathers of mixed martial arts? No, in the sense that humanity has been doing that for as long as we have been fighting, and mixing and learning from other cultures as well. However, there is no shame in that. We stand on the shoulders of giants, as the saying goes. Yes, though, in the sense that they each bring something different to the table for human physical combat. Any one of these fighters could effectively say, like the kids on my playground, I have my own style. And there will be no doubt that there will be other new mixed hybrids as well in the future. If there's one thing that all mixed martial arts have in common throughout the ages, is that they have always been very creative, and that it is also a positive human trait.